Okay, welcome everyone to this week's podcast, FaithIQ, the podcast. I'm super excited about the guest we have on this week. I met Arnie Fonseca way back in 2017 through a friend of mine, Ed Sandage. And Arnie very quickly became a guiding light in my life. I told everyone before that Jimmy Walker is one of the four people I reach out to for advice. Arnie's the one that I reach out to most of all. He carries a title amongst everything else he does for a living, life coach, which I think is it's an unpaid position. That's important to point out because I don't think I could pay him enough to put up with me. But I'm going to turn it over to Arnie Fonseca. Arnie, thank you for joining us.
Michael, thank you. And yeah, you know, it is a hat, but as we get older, we start to wear more hats, or we're trying to wear less hats. But I think it's the idea of wisdom. If we've done things right and we've learned things, then we should be sharing that knowledge and wisdom with other people. And I try to do that as much as I can. And coaching is one of those hats that I started to learn about when a client of mine, she was a paraplegic from Mexico, a very successful lady. Gosh, this would have been probably 2009 or 10. And she goes, "You need to be a life coach." I go, "What's that?" Literally what I said. She goes, you need to be like Tony Robbins." I go, "Tony Robbins? You mean that guy from that stupid movie?" That's exactly what I said. And that little conversation really changed my life because I really did a deep dive in that. I'd been doing some stuff with my church and really felt a calling to help men, because that was in the late 2000s, early part of the 9, 10, 11. Men were really starting to get beat up pretty bad. And there was a big, I think Coach McCarthy was doing the big stuff of the guy out of Colorado until he got kind of weird stuff. But regardless, there was a big men's movement going on. And so it's still kind of, it's up and down. We're back to beating up men again. So it does help to kind of step in there. But I've done a lot of stuff with coaching with young kids, male, female, couples. So, but it's a hat. Parts of me say I'd love to do it more full time, but I do so many other things that I enjoy as well. So it's just
we're going to delve into some of the things you do.
Yeah,
but I want to start off. I want to start off with your background and your upbringing. I don't know all the answers to this. I mean, I've known you for this long.
You don't know any answers to it.
I don't. That's in general, but it is specific to you also.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your, where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like?
I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I did live in California for a number of years. I never wanted to leave there because, you know, we don't remember really much before the age of 4.
Right.
So by the age of 4, I was living in a little neighborhood in La Puente, and my school was right in front of me. I lived in a cul-de-sac, and I loved it. Everything was about sports and the playground, and I was having the time of my life. Except in school, I was terrible because I was a pain in the butt and was being threatened to be spanked half the time that I was at school, and had some really crazy memories about that. But because yeah, thank God.
I want to hear if you go there, you can touch on it.
I'm going there right now. I'm going there. Thank God we didn't have medicine back then, or my mom would have had me on all of that stuff.
I want to hear the craziest story. Come on. You touched upon it. You tell me at least 8 crazy stories.
Well, okay. I'll just give you the one that broke me, Michael, I think was in 2nd grade. Because in 1st grade, I always got thrown in the back of the room for talking in the round table. So my mom and dad would always kind of tease me about the round table. But back then, remember, we were getting spanked, and I got spanked.
Wow.
Especially by my mom. Pretty good, too. And I love my mom with all my heart. But never got hit by my dad but he just scared me that if I did get hit by him, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. So, but the point of that is in 2nd grade, because of that, I already had the reputation of being somebody who can't keep his mouth shut. So in second grade, I was being threatened again and being sent to the principal.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no. And
In
then one
second
time I
grade.
went to the principal, and I think it wasn't Dunbar was the principal, but the vice principal is the one that spanked you. I can't remember his name for good reasons. Well, I remember one time going up there, he took his paddle, big wooden paddle,
Oh,
and he slammed it on top of the desk while he was talking to me. And he scared the living hell out of me. So go back to the class, right? Because if you come up here again, you're getting this. And I still see all these images. So I went back to the class, and I don't know how long it was after that. I was back at it again. And the teacher said, okay, here we go. You're going back up there, Arnie. And I literally, still see myself broke down. Here's this little second grade kid. I broke down in front of everybody and was bawling my eyes out, sitting on the floor, throwing a temper tantrum because they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know that if I'm going up to the principal's office, I'm going to get hit.
wow.
It freaked me out. I'll guarantee you, after that, I was always a great student in class.
I can understand that. Spare the child, spare the rod, spoil the child,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Changed me.
not something you can do in 2024, though.
No.
So let's fast forward a few years. You went. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college? You went to college somewhere, right?
I went to ASU, but I grew up in Phoenix.
Okay.
We moved back here when I was in second grade.
Okay. What did you study at ASU?
I was a PE teacher. I was a teacher.
Oh wow! And didn't you work out with some pretty interesting people in your, younger 20s?
After
and
that,
such?
yeah, I was a PE teacher. I taught K through 6 PE for 5 years,
Oh wow!
and then I got married. And when I got married, there was I didn't have any money. I was broke. I wasn't making any money teaching. So this is the mid '80s. And my wife and I moved to where we still live right now.
Wow!
And this house in North Phoenix, and there was an empty lot on the corner of Cave Creek and Cactus, and they were building this gigantic building, which is still there. And when I found out it was a gym, I thought, well, maybe I can work there. I'm a PE teacher. I'm a former powerlifting champ and all these other things. I can go work there, right? So when they built it, they had their call for trainers and whatever. It was kind of silly. But I was older because I was probably 20, almost 27, 26, 27. And went over and applied, got the job. I was making like, I think it was $5 an hour.
Okay.
$5 an hour. How's that? And, but I knew I would advance pretty quickly. So they were building 2 clubs at the same time. So there was another lady there. She was a Miss Arizona. And there was me, and was there something either way, but I didn't look like Mr. Arizona or anything, but I was knowledgeable and I was more mature, but I got the job.
Hold on a second. I seen pictures of you in your bodybuilding days. You looked
No, I'm
like
not saying I wasn't.
Schwarzenegger.
No,
Seriously.
whatever. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I had the goal of moving up in this place pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I did. So what they did, they created a position called advanced programmer. So I learned a lot about what I'm even doing today because they kind of left me alone. I had an office. I could bring people in for free. Everything was for free. I was making a whopping, I think I moved up to like $5.50 an hour, but I was making a ton of money. And so bringing in people in my office and just putting them on all kind of programs that I just thought of or did with my coach and learned. They were like my little lab rats. And then that position opened up at the Greenway Club on Greenway and I-17. And so that's where I met Brahm.
Okay.
Brahm.
And who's Brahm?
Brahm is now, he's the founder of Lifetime Fitness. At the time, though, he was he was close to my age. He was either my age or maybe even a year younger than me, mid-20s. But he had come over from Iran during the revolution over there, went to he went to Minnesota, Colorado. Either way, he was a founder partner because he had money, family had money, with this company called US Swim and Fitness. And so it's actually something before that. I can't remember the name. Either way, doesn't matter. So he was there. He would come over as a, you know, see what's going on with his. And so I got to know him. And he was really fit. So I got to work out with him. So it was kind of fun to work out with him and talk, and just a really good guy, very genuine. He wasn't cocky. There are other people in that company that were cocky, which is why I'm not with that company anymore. But either way, I got to know him really well. But at the same time, I was going back to school because I wasn't making any money. So I went back to ASU to study exercise science, exercise phys.
Oh, wow.
So, but years later at ASU, I was reading an article on Lifetime Fitness. It was early 90s, mid 90s. And I read the article. I was like, oh, that's cool, because I had heard about these places being built. And I read through and I go, oh, Brahm, he started these 40 million. So I immediately got on the phone and found out because they had the main thing. I looked up the main office, called them up. I go, is Brahm there? And they go, not really. Not, blah, blah, blah. Some guy calling randomly. I go, well, just tell him that Arnie says congratulations and good job, man. So that,
very cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tag you with a description. You are what I would call a disruptor. You go against what, always. Which, even in your life coaching, I think we've had a few heated arguments at times.
More than a few.
Yeah. The classic is when I say, I'm never talking to you again, you're out of my life. And 2 days later, you answer, I thought you weren't talking to me. But anyhow, what was the first industry that you disrupted and why?
Oh, man. Probably my very first job, Michael. When I was a PE teacher, I got to study under a guy named Dr. Pangarese. He was a young guy at ASU. He created a brand new program for teaching elementary PE. And I studied it with him at ASU. And then I got a job at an old district here in town, Creighton School District. That was the teacher had died. He'd been there for like 900 years, right? So I take over an old Quonset hut, and I'm this young guy. I'm ready to go to work, man. I got my program. I'm going to work. All right. And I had my Quonset hut. I started ordering equipment. No one knew what I was doing. Started teaching it. And because, I was a young guy, I had a lot of energy, and you needed it for that job. And I started it was working. So Dr. Pangarese called me, and he wanted to put on a workshop for the district. I said, this would be great. I'll help you out. So we put a workshop on for the district. And I remember the day we were working with these bunch of old fuddy-duddy PE teachers, and we were picking up the stuff. He looks at me, he goes, Arnie, he goes, you need to get out of here. These guys are going nowhere. This is a waste of time. But again, that was the beginning of, I was disrupted. They wanted nothing to do with, these are all supposed to be my colleagues, right? The guys I was going to hang out with and go have drinks with after work. I never spent one bit of time with any of those guys, Mike, in 5 years. 5 years. I was the guy that was like, oh, that guy, we're not doing any of that stuff.
I think
that's kind of
when we first met. In fact, I went down. It was like I wouldn't call it a networking event, but it's a group of guys that gather and talk sports, and Ed and his best friend Nap Lawrence, and
yep.
And I think Eddie got a little upset because you and I connected, and we ended up talking the entire time, separate from them. Eddie was like, what's Benson going to do right now? Arnie's capitalizing his time.
Yeah.
But I love that about you. And that has to come from somewhere. And I kind of want to talk about your faith. I mean, it sounds like you went to a Catholic school, right? Did you go to Catholic school? Or they beat
Public
people
school.
at all the schools out in
public school
that time frame. Okay.
No, but I went to the school, Michael, in the 60s and 70s, when you can pledge of allegiance, prayer, whatever you wanted to do, it was all good.
Yeah, I graduated.
I loved it.
Yeah. I didn't get beat though. We left out the beating stuff in
Yeah,
there.
we paddling.
But anyhow, so but your faith. When did you first come into your faith and
Well,
why?
listening to your show last week about your background, again, I'm a Catholic boy as well. My dad was an altar boy. So we always went to mass, whether it's early in the morning. I'd sometimes go early in the morning with my dad, or the normal 10 o'clock with my mom. And I went to CCD every freaking Saturday, and then every Monday night, all the same nonsense. And I always thought, and my dad always used to make fun of all the other churches, call them holy rollers and all the names and stuff. And because if you weren't a Catholic, you weren't anything, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what I grew up with. And I really kind of, it made it easy for me, Mike, except for the Saturday and the Monday night stuff when I was in high school, especially.
All right.
Because we followed that all the way through, did everything you're supposed to do as a Catholic. And then in college, I didn't have to do that anymore. So I thought, I just kind of drifted, honestly, for a while. And I think what sparked it, my interest, was when I met my wife. I was in my early 20s. So I was 24. And I drifted for quite a number of years. I always considered myself a believer, but never, Jesus is my Lord and Savior stuff. And but I met, and her dad was a very strong Christian. Okay. And I forgot how it happened, but he kind of challenged me, and I literally picked up the Bible and I read it from cover to cover. Read it from cover to cover. And it still didn't change me. Like some people say, like there wasn't like bolts of lightning or anything. But I had a very good friend, because I did in high school, I did Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I did all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I have a very good friend, and I think you may know. Did you know Ted Podleski?
No.
Ted Podleski was very big in the sports community here. He was the marketing director for the Phoenix Suns when they first started.
Okay.
That's how I got to know Jerry Colangelo really well, because Jerry and Ted were very good friends, and I actually coached Brian when I was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then but his son Scott Podleski was a super strong Christian, and like he took me to all kind of things. I was at the groundbreaking of North Phoenix Baptist Church. Had my little silver shovel, because that was just a lot we used to fire off rockets at when I was a kid. And but Scott was the one I remember in my house right here against my wall there next to my kitchen. He literally kind of pinned me up against the wall and made me make a choice.
Wow.
Yeah. But he was a wonderful man. He's passed away. He had colon cancer. But he was I would consider him my mentor, because whenever things were rough, I could go to his place and sit down, and he would just listen to me, and we could always talk, Bible, faith, whatever. And he was very kind. He's always kind to me. And he was a big part of that. That's when it started.
Okay. I know a little bit that you had a very successful physical therapy practice, right?
Yeah.
And something happened with a business partner, I believe.
Or
someone that worked for you.
There's a couple stories there.
But I mean, just a short version. You suffered some, I don't want to say betrayal or some.
Yeah, that was my second place, a big place. My son had been hurt. We started this place. I hired a guy out of Pittsburgh. He's still here, has a pretty successful place. And I brought him on and paid him a lot of money, 6 figures, to be the director, one of the directors. And gave him a lot of leeway, a lot of responsibility. And then one day I was calling around, because this is when the economy was starting to get really crazy. And I called around, I was trying to work on some referrals and stuff. And one of my friends of a equipment company said, "Oh, I didn't know you were still in business." I go, "What are you talking about?" "Well, so-and-so said that you were not in business anymore." I said, "Wow. That's funny, since I'm paying him, what, money." And so my wife and I called him into the office when we saw him next, because he was working. And I actually had him on a limited schedule too, because to give him more freedom to develop his ideas.
Right.
I was that guy. And so he came in and he was you want to know a super strong Christian? That was a super strong Christian, which is why I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a fan of your fruit. So
Do you mean by elaborate on that a little bit?
when you say you're a super strong Christian, I want to see your fruit.
Yeah, I hate people that say that because,
Why?
quite frankly, those are the people that have hurt me the most at times.
Yeah. Well, either way,
Yeah.
so he stood there and we challenged him on it, and he couldn't argue about it because we were in it. He goes, it's like I don't even know. Michael, it was a blur, but he basically said, well, blah 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 blah, right, and kind of went on his way. And even when even when I closed my clinic down, I gave him half my equipment.
Well, let's touch upon that because maybe I'm not as kind as you are. Yeah, I get in battles when people say things on the pickleball court about me that are untrue. It's not about my pickleball play, which sucks, but I tend to. In fact, I had an incident this morning, which I'm not very proud of, and after a great, couple of games, and all of a sudden, some accusations are being thrown, and yeah, I'm the type of person that if you're going to say something, you're going to say it to my face. You're not going to walk away, make a
Right.
comment, and then not do it. But forgiveness is something I've developed. In the moment, though, how do you stay calm? How do you
Michael,
deal with it?
it's not easy. I'll let me tell you another quick little anecdote there. We used to have a weekly meeting with all my staff, and I had a big staff, and we used to sit around these big mats, and we were sitting there talking, and some of the therapists were, because me and therapists don't see eye to eye, but I knew that going in to this. And one night we were discussing patients and doing this, and I had about enough of it. And so I love these people. They weren't enemies. We just didn't see the world the same. And I kind of let them have it in maybe a more of a Michael Benson kind of way. And so when we were all left, one of my directors, a beautiful lady, speech therapist, very strong Christian. Actually, when she first came to work for me, I was playing some Christian music. When she walked in, she goes, "Wow, I knew this was going to be a good place when I heard the music." Either way, beautiful lady, wonderful human being, kind heart. And my wife and her, after everybody had kind of left, they kind of pulled me aside and they go, that didn't go really go. I go, I know. And I go, so what do you think? And she goes, I think you might have to apologize. I said, really? She goes, yeah. So that weekend, I called everybody on my staff and asked for forgiveness. Most of them go, oh, don't worry about it. I didn't take it personally. So, but yeah, every single person that was there, I called. So it's part of but I went through some very, very heavy Christian, very faith-based counseling, Michael, that I paid a ton of money and worked with this wonderful man. And he taught me a lot of this stuff. And he's been one of those hinges in my life that if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I'd be here right now.
Well, I want to get to what you're doing. That's great. I want to get to what you're doing now, but I first want to tell the listeners that back in, I think it was 2018. I think it was the August, September timeframe.
Yeah.
You had me accompany you up to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
It wasn't to look at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
That's what I did, actually. I did look at it. I got a pizza, spent the night in
a
hotel. Yeah. But you did something. You did what? A rim to rim to rim.
I did my first, I want to say it was my first solo R3, rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon in the summer, which everybody told me I couldn't do. So I did it in the summer because it was hot. Remember, it was going to rain on it. God opened those clouds for us, didn't he, Michael?
He did.
Because as we were driving up, it was thundering, and actually the roads were being worked on. They were trying to stop us. And so we get up there, and then the clouds split, and I didn't see another cloud until we finished. And then about 5 minutes after we started walking away, it started pouring on us. Remember that?
I do.
So either way, I did a solo rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon in the summer. which I was told, I couldn't do, it's too dangerous, blah, blah. But I came up with a system to do it. And ever since then, I've been doing them quite a few times. I'm going up again next month. I'm taking a family.
You actually help people do it too.
Yeah,
right?
now I'm taking a family up in May. I just had a guy call me that I took last July for advice. He's doing a what's the one in Nepal? He's doing an oh my God,
wow.
Everest. He's doing an Everest marathon.
Dang.
He's going to base camp and he's doing a marathon at base camp, which is like 18,000 feet. So he's calling me from advice.
So there are people crazier than you out there.
Oh yeah, this guy. But
that's crazy.
So he's calling me for advice on that. And so it's kind of another side bucket that I enjoy, because you and I talked about how that should be a business, but it's so much more complicated than that because there's so many risks involved. I took a guy down there one time, Michael, and I didn't know if I was going to come out of there. I go, this is too risky that people, and I'm a risk taker, you know me. But a dead body down there is not a good business plan.
That guy it's not part of a good marketing strategy.
Now, to be honest with you, though, that tested my faith.
I'm sure,
because I let that guy have it, and because he was a coach as well in business. But I did every trick in the book on him mental wise. I let that guy have it, and I even left him. I got near the top where you saw me coming up and you were looking over, and I was sitting there on this rock, and I called my wife, and she goes, his name was Michael too. I go, how's Michael? I go, I don't know. I left him. She goes, what? I told him I was going to leave him if he did whatever he did one more time. And he did. I left him. She goes, you can't do that. I go, what do you mean? She goes, you can't leave him. Go back and get him. So, all right.
Well, I'm not signing up anytime soon. So anyhow, tell people what you're doing currently with helping people with joint pain, 50 years up.
Yeah, chronic. Work. Yeah. For the last 4 or 5 years, I really, mainly for my own, scratching my own itch, because I had some issues with knees and stuff as well. And so a friend of mine, when COVID really hit hard, he said, Arnie, why don't you just go back in the gym? And I didn't want to, but he was right. And so I went back in the gym. I had created a program to not only to eliminate knee pain, but other pain as well in the body. So what I do is I help people to, one, identify the imbalances in their body, because we all have them, especially people our age in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and older. And then I help them to rebalance their bodies physically. This is strictly with movements, no fancy potions or nothing. And then I help them to get bulletproof. So it's a 3-step process. It takes about 3 months. And if they follow through with it, and they learn it, they can have this the rest of their life, and they can really get better. And not only because it worked for me, but I've never seen it not work for anybody as long as they did it. And then I add in on top of that, Michael, nutrition, because if you learn how to eat better, eliminate processed foods, eat a little better, you can remove, everything's about inflammation. I just met with a doctor before I got home that we were trying to work out some kind of a referral program. And he has the same problem with referrals because everybody's in pain, Michael.
Right.
But it's finding those people that want to pay to get out of pain. And because I know what I do works, he does it more through, like, he's a natural. So he's got all the supplements. And he's going to charge you, gobs of money to get in it. And my thing is, look, just do this. You're going to feel better. And it's the easiest thing I've ever done. But here's the neat thing. During that time, I still get to wear my hat for coaching, life coaching, nutrition stuff, relationship, because all these people have all these problems, Michael. And a lot of times they're in pain because their life hurts. Yeah. That's why they're in pain.
Yeah, you're right. Emotional. How do people find you for that business? Is it Instagram?
Facebook, LinkedIn.
And what is it? Pain Free Arnie?
They can go to Pain Free Arnie on Instagram. They can go to my name, Arnie Fonseca Jr. on Facebook, or they can go to Arnie Fonseca Jr. on LinkedIn, and that's how they can. I'm the easiest person in the planet to get a hold of.
Okay. We're gonna end on something that is It wasn't in your bio. I was given your bio by Kelly. I said, that's not in there. You suffered a tragedy. You and your wife did in your life.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely made you, in a way, who you are in a
Right.
lot of ways. Can you tell us what that was?
My son was 21 years old and he was working for me. He had gone through his own issues with drugs and stuff. And so we had came together and he started working out with me early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning at my first clinic. And he was working out with me, getting his life back on track. And then I had him start working for me there. And he was working with, I had him working with his lady from Germany, picking up people and working with, I taught him things to do. And he couldn't get along with my first partner because they kind of grew up together. And then, so I put him out in the field. I gave him people to work with, and my wife says, you need to pay him more. Oh, whatever. And so I paid him a lot of money to work with patients that I had on the outside. He had a nice little thing going on, and he would still help me with the clinic and some other things. And then we had always talked about, doing something bigger and better. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day he made some bad choices, as young people do. And he got in a car with his buddies who were looking for jobs and stuff. And they decided they wanted to drink and drive. And so he was living in an apartment nearby, but he was in a horrible crash. His buddy died. The buddy's girlfriend didn't, but that's another story. And he received probably the toughest injury you could get, what I call a level 4 brain injury with behavior, which means, for those of you that understand that, it's a very high level of brain injury with behavior that goes along with it, which means, he can be very violent, he can be very loving, but most of those individuals are institutionalized. And I worked with them. I had already been doing this for 10 years. And when this happened, the insurance company called me and said, they said, your wife wants to bring him home, because she had listened to all my stories for years of this. She didn't want to put him in one of those places. I go, look, I know, it doesn't work, but she's going to bring him home. That was it. That was the only conversation I had with the insurance company. We brought him home, and that started a cascade of crazy things in my life with my kids, my youngest daughter, especially my wife, which, created a rehab, a recovery addiction thing for her. I mean, it was just most families, this is why they don't go home, because this is what happens. So, and then, my wife became super caregiver. She transformed from the caterpillar of who is this person to the butterfly of super caregiver, because no one thought that was who she was.
Right.
Because that's not her life. She was a skydiver, flying by the seat of her pants, living life, right? Driving her little convertible BMW around town, doing whatever the hell she wanted to do. Get it? Now she's super caregiver. Wow. And then, so she and my son became like one. And so right before COVID in 2019, because right when they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, that was 19, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 19. Because that's when we were at the hospital. I was watching the playoff game, and he contracted RSV, which went away during COVID miraculously, but came back.
Right. We won't go there.
But RSV kills about 15,000 people every year, mostly kids or older people. But he was compromised anyways.
Yeah.
So he contracted RSV, and the doctors really were done saving him, and my wife was done saving him, because she had already saved him a number of times, pulled him off ventilators, and we did stuff that you don't do.
And I remember talking to you a lot during that time.
Yeah, he passed away in 2019. And it was devastating, and it didn't. And the recovery for my wife didn't really happen until a year ago, in 2023, at the end of December of 20, when my wife got 2022, when my wife got a job for the first time. And it really changed. It gave her hope that she could do other things. Right. And it really did make a difference. It really did. And I remember being in church, I was praying, I was crying literally. that something had to change. And a couple things did change, but the big one was her getting back to work, and it was pretty good. Good stuff. That's
I appreciate you sharing that, because I know it's tough to share. In closing, if you were to give one piece of advice to anyone that's going through a challenge, because there's a lot of people out there that are going through challenges and they may not believe, they may not be believers, what would you tell them?
Wow. Michael, the first thing I would say is we all have to find something bigger than we are. If you're somebody that's going through a challenge right now, and the only person that you have to lean on is yourself, you're in trouble. And you need to find something that's bigger than you, because I always use the analogy of a washing machine. If all you're putting inside that washing machine is yourself and other things in your life, like your job, your marriage, your kids, your grandkids, whatever it might be, that's a mess. But if you put things in there that won't move, like God or something that won't move, eventually it should be God and yourself. That's a good place to start from, because what happens is we start to put whatever you might want to call faith in other things, Michael. Maybe a relationship, a girl, a guy, a job. If I can only get that, until that moves, because that will always move on us. So we have to find an anchor that won't move, and that has to be God. Now, it could be something else for you in your whatever your faith is. I happen to be a Christian, so Jesus Christ is my thing that will not move. I could be having the hardest time. I could be not being able to sleep at night. I could be having some weird thoughts in my head. But when I'm at the Grand Canyon, I don't listen to anything. You know what I do, though? I chant and I pray.
Wow.
I can do all things. I just go through verses. And because that floods my brain with positive things, Michael, because Satan is thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Satan is thoughts. Satan's not a real person. He's thoughts. He gets you to think stupid things. So the one thing I would just tell this person, find something bigger than you to believe in.
Well, Arnie, I want to thank you for joining us this week. I do invite you to come down and visit us sometime.
I will.
In Gilbert,
I'll
Arizona.
Be down. I will.
I hope you do. But
don't offer me any of those cookies.
I stay away from. Well, that's not true.
You look like you lost a little bit of weight.
I have lost weight. I've been working out. I've been eating a lot better. I've been eating a lot better, and
good.
I'm in a good place right now. Aside from my team losing as they did to finish up the season.
If I was a betting man, I would have bet on the Ravens.
Well, I think a lot of people did. Unfortunately, John Harbaugh probably didn't, because he didn't run the ball. But that's a whole different story for a different podcast. I want to thank you again for everything you do for me. And, you're absolutely awesome. People should definitely get to know you, because you're an awesome person. And you truly are a person that has offers a perspective. And the best thing, because I know there's some things you disagree with me in my actions, and you're like, just trust your gut, Michael.
Yep.
Trust your gut. If the situation gets too hot, back away.
But that's God.
It is.
When I say trust your gut, just trust God.
And God is delivering on that.
That's right. Sometimes we don't want to hear what he says, wants to tell us, but you know what? That's our choice, isn't it?
It is. So, well, again, thank you again. And, look forward to seeing you in person soon.
All right. Well, Michael, I love you, brother. Good luck with your podcast. There's a lot of people out there that need to hear it. So just keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the FaithIQ podcast with Michael Benson, exploring lives enriched by faith. Please like and subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform, and give us a 5-star rating and review. Follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at FaithIQ Podcast, and watch each episode on YouTube at FaithIQ Podcast.